Welcome to this edition of Upfront, a monthly program produced by New Hanover County Schools. I'm Ann David. Each month here on Upfront with the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Tim Markley, joins me to discuss district-wide issues, accomplishments, and programs. Also on today's show, we'll talk with Shannon Smiles. She's the director of the Early Childhood Program for the district. She'll be talking about the pre-K programs, Head Start, and the application process and funding. But first, Dr. Markley is going to join us for a few questions from you. Hi, Dr. Markley.
And welcome back.
Now, the exciting news is that you have kind of taken the Upfront show on the road, doing coffee chats with parents.
Yeah, every year at the beginning of the year, we do a sort of a sit down with parents. We invite them to come in if they have questions. And the attendance has been spotty. We held our last one at Biddy & Bowes, which is a great place if you want to go have a cup of coffee, and had the best attendance we have ever had. From the moment we opened the doors to well after the time we said we would finish, we had parents in the whole day talking about different issues. Now, most of them are school-specific kind of issues, but it was really neat to get some parent feedback that was talking about some of the positive experiences. One grandmother talking about how taking in her two kids and then coming into our schools, what that did to help turn around those two students was phenomenal. And being able to answer some questions on that personal level, I think helps us get that message out there about what we're doing in our schools.
Well, that's excellent. And it was not just yourself, but you had your senior staff as well?
We had senior staff, which is our folks who run operations, instruction. Buses are always an issue. If you want to drive a bus, we have 14 vacancies and we'd love to have you come down and talk to us. So those kinds of simple things to some of the larger issues in the district. So it's a great opportunity to meet one-on-one with parents.
Well, that's excellent. And so you're planning some of those again as well?
Based on the success we've had here, we'll do another one probably right after the first of the year before we hit enrollment season. We've done them online as Twitter chats, and so we'll try a bunch of different formats to reach out and engage parents.
And for parents to know, it's called Parent Chat.
It's Parent Chat. If you do it online, it's Parent Chat or Twitter Chat. So there's a number of ways that we'll do it. This one was done at Biddy & Bowes. We'll choose a different location, a different part of the county next time.
Okay. And where can parents find out when those are coming up? Will they be
Stay
televised?
tuned to our website. Okay. We also do a call out the night before, just so you know what's happening. You can always send questions to Ann, and if you can't get to one of our Twitter chats, she'll try to get it answered here or email us directly.
That sounds great. Thank you. Thank you for going out to the parents and making that connection. Now, some questions that we've gotten here. Around the internet, it seems like that is taking over learning in general. And if you could kind of go over a little bit, I know that there is now a plan that's in place, a digital plan that we have to do.
Yeah, we're working with the state to create our digital learning plan. And if you go to our website, you can see the full details. But you got to think about education now is so much different than it was 20 years ago when I was a student. And we've moved away from textbooks being the driver to what's happening, to a lot of our stuff moving online, a lot of digital resources, where we're picking bits and pieces of different areas and putting them together to make a curriculum. So we need a plan in place that helps us address those kinds of needs, and that's what our digital learning plan does. An example of some of the things you might find in there is our effort to extend internet access to those who don't have it. There's a new divide out there, and it's the digital divide, those who have access to digital resources and those who don't. So some of our students can sign out a little device called a Kajit, which is a mobile hotspot, and if they got assignments, can take that home with them to help them complete that assignment or stay up with students. We use it a little bit with some of our hospital homebound students and others. So the nature of education is just simply changing dramatically. When you look at students who are taking online courses in middle school now, taking high school courses in middle school that are online, I've got high school kids who have never set foot on a high school campus receiving diplomas. And that's the kind of world that we're moving into, and that's what this plan sort of helps us guide to going forward. We have a program called E-Academy at Mosley, where we're reaching out to homeschool students who may be uncomfortable in a full school setting, but can access the courses online through that program. And we've seen some success there. So education is no longer a one size for everyone. We've really started to personalize education. You see it, and we'll move a little off digital into our specialized schools. When you see IB at one school, Lyceum at another school, STEM or marine science at our high schools, those are specialized programs designed to meet the needs of different students. We've got an immersion school designed to meet the needs of parents who want that dual language experience. So the choice options in our county are just wide open for parents.
That's amazing. And I know that we've discussed before about the bring your own device, because so many students, well, I would imagine just about all students have a phone of some kind, and so that...
Well, the reality is, and you see districts talk about one-to-one, we have 27,000 students in our district, and to buy a device for every student really isn't an economically practical solution, especially when you're not going to use it every period of every day. So we've got mobile carts in all of our high schools, all of our middle and elementary schools that generally can help those schools when they need access. But we do allow folks to bring their own device, and we do filter the internet, so you got to work through our filter system, and we refine that process a little bit every year. But you think about it, if you've got 2,000 students at one of our high schools, and they all want to get on the internet at once, what's that do to bandwidth? We actually have some of the largest pipelines for those in the area in terms of the data that comes into our district. But when you add in video, because a lot of teachers now use video clips from like YouTube and Edmodo and other places, that can really suck up a lot of your bandwidth. So we've got to have a plan and process in place to deal with that.
I can only imagine. I know how crowded our bandwidth gets in a house with just a family, much less a whole school full of students. Now, where can parents or students check into getting the mobile hotspot? Is that
that's something you have a conversation with your school about, and if it's something that there are a limited number of those devices, and they're checked out just like a book in the library, and they'll help you with that.
Okay. Well, before we go to break and talk to Ms. Smiles, I know we've got an application process coming up in just after the new year.
Yeah, we're heading into, it's hard to believe, we're heading into the Christmas season. But shortly after we get back from Christmas break, it becomes enrollment season. So in around February, we'll start with our choice fair. There'll be applications for if you want to go to one of our choice programs. So look for those online. I'm sure in January we'll hit it a little deeper. But you need to start filing that one away just to get ready for that to take place.
And as you said, there's so many options in all levels of the schools, so it's good to check it all out.
You go from elementary all the way up to high school. So we got something for everybody.
Absolutely. So parents and students need to check that out over the holidays and be ready to keep those dates in mind.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Sharon Smiles. She's the director of our school district's Early Childhood Education Program. She'll join us to talk about the expansion of the pre-K program, Head Start, and the application process, and much more. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Start your day with New Hanover County Schools, The Morning Show. This Rise and Shine program will put a smile on your face and a spring in your step. Best of all, you'll start the day a little smarter. The Morning Show features an exciting 6-hour mix of exclusive features, cooking, entertainment, news, science, math, and more. New Hanover County Schools, The Morning Show, educating all viewers to achieve today and tomorrow in a global community. Only on this channel.
Welcome back to Upfront with the Superintendent. Last month, New Hanover County Schools held a ribbon cutting and dedication ceremony for the pre-K program expansion at the Career Readiness Academy at Mosley, PLC. It was the first big indicator that the growing pre-K programs, and here to talk about more about those programs is Shannon Smiles, Director of the school's Early Childhood Education Program. Welcome, Shannon.
Good morning, Ann.
I'm glad to have you with us.
Thank you for having us.
Now, tell everyone just a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get into a discussion about the pre-K programs.
I'm the director for New Hanover County Schools Early Childhood Education Department, which is housed under the umbrella of Instructional Services. And what we do is we provide services for children ages 3 and 4 years old across the county of New Hanover County.
Okay. Now, do we have one pre-K program? Give us a kind of an overview of what we have, because when you were explaining it to me, I was amazed. I did not know we have covered such a wide range of
And I think
schools.
that's one of the reasons we are here today, is to talk about some opportunities for our county. We house the federally funded program Head Start, which is allotted 260 children, and that is currently being served at Dorothy B. Johnson Pre-K Center. We are also the contract administrators for our state-funded program, NC Pre-K, which has enrollment for 334 students, and 218 of those are private centers, and the other are remaining in our public settings. And we have 16 schools across the county that provide services for all of our 3 and 4 year old children.
So do you have a total number of how many students are served?
Well, we're excited to add our 45 for Mosley, so that would bring us up to 857 students.
Wow, that is wonderful.
Yeah, we've expanded since 2013 by close to 325 students.
Now, I know everyone thinks of pre-K and they hear Head Start, and so explain the difference between Head Start and maybe NC Pre-K and how they work together.
Okay. Basically, it's a federal funding versus state. Head Start, however, has some stringent policies attached with it. We're very fortunate to be under the school system grantee, which is our Board of Education governing body, because the systems are in place, and New Hanover County Schools is taking the lead with that. So our Head Start is a direct grant housed by the school system, not like your Title I, which is filtered through the state level. So we're responsible for a lot of additional pieces physically and providing high quality services for our children, and that comes with an intense federal government monitoring process. So that's a little bit unique to the county and different from our NC Pre-K, which is administered from the state.
Okay, and now some states have universal pre-K, like just like elementary school. All their students go, but North Carolina's not quite there yet.
No, we're not. We're hoping that eventually that might be in the near future. Currently, we're not mandated, but we do know the importance of it. You have 2,000 days before a child enters kindergarten. The brain is the only organ that is not developed at birth, and research demonstrates that low-income families fall way behind in vocabulary to their affluent peers. And ages 3 and 4 in pre-K is an opportunity. It's the window of opportunity of providing services for these kids to catch them up with their peers.
So I'm sure that you do hope that North Carolina takes it to universal.
Absolutely.
Because
there's many reasons why.
It's so essential in those early years. And now tell us a little bit about Mosley.
We're so excited because this is a unique situation. It's a partnership with the county managers, so county commissioners are on board. In 2015 and 16, school leaders came to the table, and we reviewed an ongoing wait list for our Head Start children. So we knew that there was a need, and we had to figure out how can we serve these 3-year-olds on the wait list. They need to be in classrooms. So our school leaders came together with the county manager and other important leaders, and we came up with a plan, a strategic plan on how do we get these 3-year-olds from the Head Start wait list into our classrooms. And our CRA at Mosley Pre-K Center is now serving 45 children, 3 classrooms, low ratio, in a very high quality setting, licensed BK teachers, along with an instructional assistant to help with those services. We were fortunate to bring together our operations department, who then built us a new playground for our children to extend our learning environment to our outside door environment. So we're very lucky to have this opportunity to get these children in these classrooms, which we know they need to be in.
That sounds wonderful. Now, explain a little bit about what they do. I remember coloring and naps, but it's more involved, I'm sure, in a pre-K setting. Explain a little bit about what they're doing.
Well, we are in vertical alignment with our school readiness and transitioning into kindergarten classrooms. So we have a standardized state-approved curriculum that is modified for our pre-K kindergarten, so that when they go into kindergarten and they transition into kindergarten, all those learning domains are being practiced and enforced and progressed and assessed daily. So we do follow a rigorous curriculum along with a social emotional piece, which is conscious discipline. So it's a whole child concept. And so our teachers gather data, we measure progressions, we're able to share with our parents how their children are growing in all of the key learning domains that are required for kindergarten. So when we talk about naps, that's a very critical piece to what we do in pre-K. We need to rest. Our children need rest. However, it's much more than that. And I just really charge up people to come and take a peek at Mosley. Come see what we do. It's hard work, but very worth it.
Well, that's exciting because it's good to know it's not just childcare. They're actually in a learning environment and progressing, and it improves their kindergarten readiness from what you're saying.
And with these funding sources, we're required to provide ongoing professional development to equip our teachers and support our classrooms in the development of expediting the curriculum and growing in social emotional development, because we know that if a child is not ready to learn, then socially not ready to self-control and get along with their friends, then they're not ready to academically be prepared for kindergarten. So that's very critical.
Well, now, so it sounds like there is a process involved in students coming. You just don't open the doors and they all come. So could you kind of go over the process, because that's very important.
Yeah. Again, we are limited on our slots. It is an application process. So for those children that are 3 and 4 years old before August 31st are eligible to apply. Income is factored into it with many other high risk factors, but we're limited. It's not a first come, first serve, and it's not open to all of the public. So we have to be sensitive to that as well. And we're going to start that process for next year in January. For this current year, we are full at all of our locations, but we strongly encourage parents to continue to apply.
And you do have a waiting list, so
Yes,
it's
we
not
do.
like you have to continue to apply. Can you apply once and stay on the waiting list, or?
It's a good question, because people always want to know, if I apply, we roll the application over and make those applicable to the new year if possible. So once you apply at our office, then yes, you do not have to have another application process.
Okay. And I know that with folks that have siblings close together, is it similar to that? I know in some of the school policies, the siblings are accounted. If one sibling's in, is another one given preferential treatment, or is it still one by one?
Well, unfortunately, with our funding sources, we cannot grant employee benefits as such as what you're referencing to. But what we can do is we can really add some pieces to those applications that might be critical for the placement of the child. Again, it is for our high-risk children, giving them the head start prior to kindergarten.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's such a wonderful program. And, I know this show is targeted toward parents. So can you kind of walk through some things parents need to know? I know that we all are so concerned about getting our children into pre-K or the right environment, whether it be childcare or pre-K. So kind of give some guidance to parents, what they need to do if this is a consideration for them, or where they need to go to make sure that this is a consideration for them.
Well, the first step would be to make sure you have an application and make sure it's completed. What often happens is we have incomplete applications, so we have to keep on pushing that back to the parent to fill out those pieces. Due to it being a free program supported by these multiple funding sources, we have to make sure that we have all the red paperwork done, which is the lengthy application process. So I strongly encourage parents to make sure that they first have an application submitted in to our office that is located at Dell Spencer Building, or they may also attend Dorothy B. Johnson Pre-K Center. They will accept applications along with Howell Pre-K Center.
Now, the applications, are they online, or are there hard copies at some location?
We do both. We have online, and you can go to the New Hanover County Schools website, and under Pre-K information, you will find the application. For next school year, again, we do not start that process till the end of January.
Okay, so that's great. But parents need to go ahead and decide and look into that, considering there is a lot of paperwork involved.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know this is exciting news for parents of small children, and it's important that, excuse me, that we get our students ready as early as possible before they start kindergarten.
Absolutely.
So this is an exciting time.
We've got to bridge
for us.
that gap.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Shannon.
Thank you for having me, Ann.
Now, don't go away. We'll be back in a few more moments to discuss some topics with Dr. Markley. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Your School News, covering news that matters for parents, guardians, and greater New Hanover County. Featuring emerging trends in learning.
Organizing a classroom into workstations is fast becoming one of the newest methods in teaching.
Topical education issues from across the county.
You're going to see a priority on a lot of the issues that were a priority for Hanover County are a priority statewide.
And news on K-12 education issues affecting our community and state.
The thing that I'm trying to stress as I go across the state is we need to give schools flexibility. Flexibility to innovate, like right here in this traditional public school, this magnet school.
Your School News brings viewers more than 8 hours of school news and information so you know what's happening in the district, what students are learning, how the school system operates, and beyond. Your School News, only on this channel.
Welcome back for our final segment here on Upfront with the Superintendent. And Dr. Markley has just a few more questions that you've asked. Now, Dr. Markley, I know that along with applications to school, we have the ever-pressing question of hardship. Can you kind of explain what the whole hardship policy is, what they entail, and kind of who decides those?
Yeah, when you're talking about hardships in terms of where you go to school, we look at those on a case-by-case basis. And those applications go to our Student Services Department. Dr. Rick Holliday and his folks look at each application and try to determine the nature of the hardship and if that would qualify for you to go to a school outside of your attendance area. Examples might be medical issues. Some employment issues, but not a lot of those. Medical is probably the most common one that we see that we'll approve. And so if you're taking care of a relative and you've got it's near a different school that works, we'll consider that. But we'll take those case by case to our Student Services Department, and you would call them and ask for an application, and they'll review it.
Is there a time frame for that?
We look at hardships throughout the year because the hardships don't happen at one time of the year. Right. So if you've got a circumstance that changes, maybe you're going to you're moving down the road, but you'd like to finish the year at the school you're at, and there's a need to do that, we'll look at that.
Okay, that's a good thing to know. Now, I know the other topic that I constantly have parents ask me about is redistricting.
It's coming.
And I know with the bond moves in the new elementary schools, now the board is looking at an elementary redistricting in 2020.
Yeah, when you look at the elementary projects, we have to complete the Wrightsville Beach project. It's the last of the bond projects, and once we do that, then the redistricting will be planning during that process, but once that's done, that's when that'll happen. We're looking at middle and high school, though, probably earlier than that. We're going to start looking at those this year because we've got schools from 1,700 to 2,200 at the high school level, And the same thing at our middle school level. We've got to make better use of the space that we have.
Now, I know we talked a little bit about high school options. I know some of the schools, C-Tech and Wilmington Early College and Isaac Bayer, have they helped at all with the overcrowding in our high schools?
Well, when you look at our specialty programs, Mosley, which is a high school program, C-Tech, Wilmington Early College, Isaac Bayer, there's about 600 students in those programs. Imagine those 600 students back on one of our campuses. I mean, 600 is a small 1A, 2A high school just by itself. So while we have 4 traditional high schools, those other smaller non-traditional programs really do a lot to help with crowding at those other schools.
But we still going to need to do some redistricting.
Still got to do some redistricting.
All right. Well, let's talk about, shift gears and talk about volunteers, because that's always a very important part of parents. Now, I know that North Carolina does an NC Reads program. Can you explain that a little bit? And maybe
well, that's sort of an umbrella
programs?
for a lot of different reading programs we have in our schools. Your group, Lawyers for Literacy, is you'll find on that list, and is a great program. We've got a new program at Snipes where we've got some coaches and players coming over to help them with reading. So there are a lot of ways to get actively involved in helping our students. Freeman does a Friday literacy program where community leaders come in and read to students. And sometimes you get questions about, well, what kind of background do you have to do on those folks?
Oh, absolutely.
And so we do have a volunteer process, and I'd encourage you to look at our policy. But we generally divide volunteers into 2 categories, level 1, level 2, where that first level is you're coming into a large group setting, and you won't be alone with the students. If you ever get into a situation where it's a one-on-one situation, maybe doing some tutoring or other stuff, we're going to ask you to do a background check.
And that's a daunting process for parents. They think a background check is invasive, but it's not so bad, is it?
All of our employees have background checks. But if I'm going to ask you to be one-on-one with a child, then that parent of that child needs to know that we've done a check on who's with their students. And so that's as much to protect you as well as to protect the child.
Oh, yeah. Now, is that going to count maybe chaperones that go on field trips, or?
Only if that's a chaperone would be in a situation where they would again be one-on-one with a particular child. Okay. And if you're a parent and you're going on as a chaperone for that's a level 1 kind of situation. But if you're a level 2 where you're going to, maybe you've got a child who needs somebody with them all the time, we're going to do a deeper check on that.
Absolutely. Now, when they do the background check, is this going to be a yearly thing, or once you have one background check, you're good for a certain amount of time?
I believe, and I would have to double check, that it's good for 2 years.
Okay, so it does have to be redone.
It does have to be redone.
And if it's done for one school, does it cover?
It's good for that school for while you're there. When you switch levels, you'd have to do a different one.
Okay.
So if your child moved from elementary to middle, we'd ask you to do a new one at the middle school level.
How about if you have a child at elementary and at middle at the same time? Does that cover both? I'm putting you on the spot.
We could probably swing that in both places.
Yeah, because I'm sure that seems to be the following question with parents.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to do 2 background checks, but so it's just a matter of the 2 principals calling
the logistics, to make sure that happens. Yeah. Well, that's important because I think parents do like to be involved, and especially with NC Reads, there are a lot of community volunteers that really like to go in and help retired teachers and professionals that enjoy reading with elementary school students. And the schools, I'm sure, really appreciate that.
And they do. There are some groups that will exempt, for example, law enforcement, because they do a regular background check. We don't require them to do another background check. So if it's an organization that's already doing background checks, ask us about that and we'll work with you. Okay,
that sounds great. Well, that's all the questions we have this time. And this wraps up another edition of Upfront. On behalf of Dr. Markley and the staff here at NHCS TV, thanks for watching. And we'll see you again next month for another edition of Upfront with the Superintendent.